Parallax is also in this episode our main focus, and this time I want to go a little bit about a sequence of shots and how to think in terms of preparation of those shot sequences. Have a look to this billboard here, how it relates to that end of that wall when I move it a little bit back and forth. You see there is a huge change which wouldn't be possible just with one image. And there's a little bit more into this shot because I have this time modeled the windows. And I found it was needed for that shot to get a nice parallax here. And I can go even further with this camera to left or right based on that. But to avoid those modeling tasks, because they are relatively time consuming and you get always a sharp edge here, or you model these edges really carefully. That takes a long time and that is normally nothing that you have on hand. This is blurry here because it's a preview, and sorry again for that, but the capture software and the big full-size video wouldn't work here very well. Anyway, when we go now to Cinema 4D and there to an empty scene, I want to go with you one time very quick through the camera calibrator. And again, we talk about the camera calibrator in detail, of course, with all these parameters later on. First of all, a run through this so you get used to it. I call up here just in JPEG. As you see, it's 11 megabytes, and even the Photoshop file would be here already 103. So I stick here with a proxy file, as I call these JPEGs, because I wouldn't like to work with them really in production for the final image, of course. So this here is a building where I can show you exactly what I have in mind. Let's pretend I want to shoot where I am, and the camera moves then along the street to the next building, very fast maybe, to get here on the roof maybe a billboard, and then there a billboard, and so I can run with the camera along a street of billboards very fast. Okay, so first of all, I need to calibrate this. And again, this is a rundown. It's not really a detailed rundown. I go here to the calibrate, go to edit grid, and we have 4 points here. And when I click on one of these points, I get a magnifier. We will see how we adjust those magnifiers in the detailed overview of this fantastic tool. So, and I have to find here, of course, the edge where the building stops, and let's pretend this is here, and then I go here with my last point exactly to this point. I assume that this is here straight, and this line here gives me from the windows a tiny different impression here, but let's pretend this is okay. On set we could use a little laser that is leveled to see if that is really horizontal or if there is a little end of that. And 27 is way over the top, but let's pretend as well that I have no idea about this at the moment. Add line. So I go here with this line here on the top and drag this on this area. Always in mind, I assume that this building here is a 90-degree angle wall-to-wall object. So I have shift-clicked here on this edge here as well. So I have green for Y, red for X, and the blue one for the C value, or Z if you like. And I drag here another one in just to make that more stable. I hope I find here something that has a value for that. The dark one here, and shift click on this until it turns blue to have the Z or C direction into it. And now it looks already better. 25, 24 was the lens, whatever the manufacturer think is right. And I see here solve, 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 not really in the perfect way, but when we take here a look to this height, I would assume the door is maybe 200 and something centimeters. This is roughly double. So let's say I want to give here, oops, this should be green. We put here 500 into it, just an assumption. So we get a little bit more stability in the scene. And then we need only here one pin. and this pin gives me the origin point now from the whole scene, and I like to have that here on one of these corners. So everything is green here, solved. The vanishing points are in the yellow area. Not fantastic, but the lens gives me here already a little bit satisfaction. The next point is, of course, then that we create a camera mapping tag. We can also create a background object, but that's not my target here at the moment. Going into the foresight view, and then I take here a cube, and this cube should be exactly with this lower corner here on the 0, 0 point. So I move this here just to this position and this position. And I do this here by hand, so you can see here if we run into a negative value, because based on the camera we have to move it maybe in this direction or in another. Mostly it's 3 times 100 in the positive value, and then I have exactly that corner there. And based on the fact that we can't just scale these things from one corner, I take now here a null object which lands exactly with the default preferences on 0, 0, 0. You have to check this if you have a different preference setting. And then you drag this cube here underneath. And when you take then the material on it, it looks maybe a little bit weird because we look from this side, and the camera mapping tag shouldn't be on both, it should be on front. Then you see already where the problem was. It's the through projection in this case. If I click here on my camera, then I can see this looks here already very nice. I click now on the null object, and I go from the model to the object tool, and I go to the scale tool. I go to my main window, and the axis here should now exactly on the 0, 0 point, so I can drag now here based on my settings this cube in the way I want to have it. Very nice and precisely. Normally I would go a little bit higher to paint my alpha channel there, and then I can go here to this side. Maybe I want to have only this building here, and I go here only a little bit into that area because I know here is the border from my picture, so this should be enough. Then we take a look here to the side view, and I open this H, and it is the front view, display, go root. And now you can see here I have photographed from this perspective always the right side from these window areas. And the further I go into depth, the more blurry it becomes here. You can see that very clear because it is the most stretched area from this part of the image. So here we have our main problem. This is the way where we can measure what we really need when we move along an area like this. The front part from the main view here looks perfect, and it becomes smaller here, so we don't need so much pixels, and we haven't so much pixels here. But in this view we can see clearly what we have. It's very, very low res here compared to the left side. If we would go now with the camera, and I'll show you that here on the main view, go to my editor view. When we would go now into the opposite direction with the camera, we look from the left side normally, now we look from the right side. Everything looks wrong. And even if we model now here exactly these windows, and we don't have the inside of the left window sides here of these columns, and we would have the need to texture these as well. So there's always a need to think in which way we will see finally the camera mapping later on, because that's the whole trick, to do as less as possible work for these things and get the most buck out of the bang, bang out of the buck. So from this side here we would get the most out. From the other side there's not so much really usefulness here. And this brings up finally a theme where I want to go with you, of course, and that is in the next scene, very simply illustrated. So let's pretend for a moment that these 4 placeholders, these cubes, are exactly my scene, and I want to make a storyboard maybe, or just have an animated storyboard here with these cubes. From the view here I can see all these sides that I might see later on in the animated camera view here. So when the camera moves here along and over the building and then back to the blue cube here and then below it, we have already an idea that we might not see one side of the blue cube here. But we could also say, okay, we shoot from here, from the view that we have at the moment, and then we extract all these cubes here. We can take a longer lens, so we get always one cube in our picture. Perfect. And this side here, we just photograph and map it on the other side. That will not work, of course, based on the light, which we discuss in another episode of this series. The first thing that I want to show you here is that we have something that we have to consider. Even if we can see these cubes here now, and with the limitation of the blue cube here where the camera goes already behind and away, we have something that we can't see here because the camera goes here very low, then it goes up, and then it moves to the back low again. So when I take a look now through the animated camera, then we can see here these areas that I have marked with a different color. The greenish bluish area here, that was something we haven't seen from here. And that is what we need. And exactly there's the big difference. When you compare these files here, we see the lower one, the right side one. And then from the animated camera, we see this here, but much bigger. And we see the ceiling sided one or the top one from the window framing here. And then it becomes even more interesting when we go here now over that. And then we see here, I have used here the same color for the lower one. That was not visible from this side here, maybe tiny little bit. So there was a hint already, but do you have noticed it? That's exactly the point where I want to go with you. When we go here again, and I have said that before, but I want to really stress the point because camera projection is pretty much all about this. Finding the perfect projection point, get an image from here, and get an image from there, get an image from here, and then from here perhaps. We have discussed this, of course, but I wanted to stress this point here with these areas again. In the moment we have those pictures perfectly, we don't need to build up all these geometry here. And of course, I think you have gotten this point now very nicely, and I have stressed this here on several episodes, more than enough. And so on the end, I want to go, of course, into the scene file then that I have shown you as preview on the start. So here we are back to our main clip view, and this time rendered in full quality. And we have geometry for the windows here to have exactly this side of the window, so I can move the camera fairly wide over the area. So okay, for me this sign here was more important, and of course the billboard here from the De La Duc band and this is the sign here, of course. And let's have a look here in Photoshop to this picture, and you might see exactly where I got this picture from. I had to shoot from below, so I miss out when I want to have the camera very high some parts here. It would have been better to shoot in a different way. So for example, this sign here needed to be in a way that I have an image with and an image without, and take then this area from this window to this side and so on. It looks different in the picture, and I have here in Poe with a light source that doesn't work very well, and to have people in front of the house and a different area here is not really what works. The door here behind this could be visible, but it isn't. I had only one picture. It was, to be honest, not intended to be in a movie. But I shot it because I like these colors and all of that, and it's a little bit far away from me, so just to go there again, the light would be different and everything else. So I had to prepare this picture. First of all, get everything away what was in the foreground, here, back and forth. And you see, you can take always a little bit that is in the scene to get the car away, the pole and the guy here. and you have to know what you want to have in a scene. And I didn't want to have the right lower area here. Wherever I moved the camera, I thought, no, I don't want to have that. So I extended that here as well, and have here a very rough painting how things work out. And you can see here I have extended this door. This is not there, now it's there. And so I can use this part here for the front side, and then this part here for the back side. And if I had thought earlier about what I have told you before, then I would have shot maybe 3 or 4 images, so I don't have to paint and create all this stuff. It's a lot of work, and all what I have told you so far in this episode here is based on experience, and this experience normally was paid with a lot of extra work to get things done, like this window here. And I thought, I don't want to have that metal there, so it's gone. And so is the sign. And now this was the original. You see, there's a lot of things going on before you even can start. And again and again and again, I know I stress this point, preparation is where you save the most time. It's not just starting and get things done. And that is why I'm talking so long here about all of these details, and not just take a cube and make it and show you that you can have that in 10 minutes or so. It's some work, and the more you know, the more you save time. That's my target here, that you get savvy with it, that you know what you're doing, and that you don't waste your valuable time. And thanks for listening, and invest some time. Have fun.